The Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde said the deadly blast that rocked the city of Ibadan on Tuesday night was caused by explosives stored by illegal miners. 2 people were killed and over 70 others injured in the explosion that has affected 7 suburbs of Nigeria's third most populous city. Reacting to the incidents, publisher of Sahara Reporters and the 2023 presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore, said the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde and the security agencies should find the supposed illegal miners that caused the explosion that rocked the city of Ibadan on Tuesday evening. Now moving down to insecurity that have been ravaging the nation, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has assured residents of the nation's capital that the FCT administration would make the territory to halt for bandits and terrorists. The minister stated this during a town hall meeting in Buari on Wednesday, organized to address the incessant kidnapping in the area. In the studio with me, I have public affairs analyst Matthew Oluku, who will be dissecting these issues together. It's Bandits on Flip TV. I'll be back in a Like I said, public affairs analyst Matthew Oluku is with me in the studio. And, we are here to dissect some important issues on the program. Matthew, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure. We've been talking about insecurity for some weeks now, and of course, it's something that has raised a serious concern, in the country. A country where over 200 million people are not safe. A country where the new administration promised to secure the lives and properties of the citizens, and the citizens are not seeing it forthcoming. I think we need to ask questions. Matthew, Abuja is not safe. Even the eastern part of the country is not safe, and it has also escalated to the western part of the country. Of course, we saw the FCT minister, had a town hall in Abuja, and talking about the state of insecurity, and he has also vowed, to fish out these criminals. But it's not all about that. What we need now is proactive measures to tackling insecurity in the country. How we are seeing it in this administration, Matthew?
Once again, thank you for having me. Let me start by saying that security of lives and property is at the cardinal of governance. The constitution is unambiguous about it, because it says that it's welfare of Nigerians and their security shall be the primary purpose of governance. So to that extent, if government is protecting lives and property, they are not doing anybody any good. They are not doing anybody any favor. Rather, it is their responsibility. Having said that, I think there's every need to tinker with our current security architecture. I think the command and control system that is centralized is not working. I think there's every need to allow the state level, the state governors, to operate some level of security power, even at the local government level. Because for what I've seen, crime is local. And the crime that is predominant or that is happening in a particular state may be different from what is happening in another state. So if you co-opt the governors into the security arrangement, I think we are going to have a leeway in trying to resolve this issue. This issue did not start with this government. It's under Muhammadu Buhari, we try to manage security, and this government have inherited it. So I think this government should be bold enough, decisive enough to do things differently from the way the former government addressed it.
Yeah, Matthew, there is a saying that a country where people are languishing in poverty cannot be secured. I don't know if that is true.
The truth is,
But with the level of poverty we are experiencing in Nigeria, especially hunger, I think it's one of
no,
the.
if you look at the dynamics, if you look at the indices, look at the nature of the crime, there are some that you cannot attribute to poverty.
Okay.
Somebody who is kidnapping and asking for 50 million ransom, that has nothing to do with poverty.
But something led them to that.
Of course, I agree with you.
Okay.
Someone who is sacking villages, like the what we see that looks like genocidal invasion of communities, that cannot be likened to poverty. I'm talking about what happens in Plateau recently.
Okay.
And at times you see that happen in Benue as well. So you cannot attribute that to poverty. That is purely invasion of communities. If it even look as if it's genocide against a people. So I think the government needs to tinker with the current security arrangement. Obviously, what we have currently is not working. I think the governors should be allowed to operate on security power. The fear that if you do that, it may lead to disintegration of the country, I think that fear is a misplaced one. Because the current arrangement, you cannot say that there are no issues with the way it's being managed. You cannot say that there is no abuse in terms of federal government. But where you have abuse, where you have people playing outside the rule of the game, I think sanctions follow. So for me, I think as a people, as a country, there's every need to look at the arrangement and let us have a reworking of it.
Governors, presidents are all rising against this. The best thing for us for them to do now is to come together to fight this menace. Now, when you check out the activities of the bandits and the Boko Haram terrorists, would you say they are similar?
No, honestly, it's different to differentiate between what they call banditry and Boko Haram. Though they're all terrorists in nature, the activities. And because before now, the activities of Boko Haram was restricted to the northeast. But we are seeing a semblance of that activity in the north central, particularly Benue State. We have seen similar thing in even Zamfara, seen it in even Katsina, the home state of the former president. So for me, the modus operandi is similar. That's why it's difficult to decipher whether what is happening currently is different from Boko Haram or is another form of security threat. But all the same, it behooves for the government to protect life and property. And as a government, they were supposed to have monopoly of coercive power. Because they are not having it, they are sharing with that power. They are sharing that power with some non-state actors. That's why we are seeing what we are seeing. But however, I think the government of Nigeria, through our armed forces, is more formidable than all the non-state actors, whatever name they go by. So I think what we need is strategy. I think what we need is to rejig the current security arrangement. Not that we don't have what it takes to combat it.
Now is it that the bandits are the one kidnapping people, or we have another group that are perpetrating this evil?
From what we can see, from what we can read, I think the issue that has to do with the headers, community clashes, we know the areas where those ones are rearing their ugly head. The issue of Benue, the issue of Southern Kaduna, the issue of Jos, those are the major areas where headers, you can clearly say that yes, this header community clash. As such, what we need to address this area is ranching. But apart from that, the other one that happens in other part of the country that has to do with outright kidnapping, like all these outskirts of Abuja, you cannot attribute that to header farmers clash. That is purely business. That is purely kidnapping for ransom. Like I said, if someone is kidnapping and asking for a ransom of 50 million, 100 million, you cannot attribute that to poverty. That is purely business.
Purely business.
And as a government, we must exert our authority as a government. I mean the government. Because you cannot tell me that someone will kidnap, take their victim to their abode in the forest, in the bush, as the case may be, and all the government is doing, or the relative or the loved ones will be doing, is trying to raise ransom. And I think the government should be act as a government. When I mean act as a government, they should be able to protect life and property. You are looking for a solution. Instead of arresting or dislodging these criminals from the bushes, from the forest, you are criminalizing ransom paying. Saying that if you pay ransom, there's a law that says if you are convicted of for paying ransom, you are going to spend 15 years in jail. For me, that is not a solution. Because the people who have their loved one kidnapped, you cannot blame them because they are not security agencies. And if they are seeking solution, pay ransom to get their loved one released, I don't think it's out of place. So what the government needs to do is to move in through our security agencies, synergize both the DSS that had the mandate of intelligence gathering, the regular police, the army. They should synergize, get relevant, actionable information, intelligence, go into the forest, into the bushes, destroy them, and let us have a peaceful environment.
Now, of recent, you talked about the president, sacking the national security advisor, that's Malam Nuhu Ribadu.
No, by all standard, the office of the national security advisor supervises all issues that have to do with security on behalf of the president. So I think, for me, Ribadu, who in his capacity as the former and the pioneer chairman of EFCC, did very well, but it's unclear whether he had the competence, the ability to function effectively in this his new office. Because we are looking at a situation where you are bringing generals under his office who take directive from him. So it's yet to be seen whether a Ribadu will be able to handle this position. For me, I would have preferred a situation if a retired general is in the office, but in the prerogative of the president, he has the prerogative right to determine who he gives the position.
But will it make any difference, a retired general?
No, we are looking at, there is always this belief among the army that the military is superior to all the armed forces. If you are not bringing a retired police officer, I know once you give the position, automatically every person is supposed to obey. But psychologically speaking, can you say that all the military hierarchy will
succumb to the order?
Not come to his office to take directive. But I think it would have been better if a retired military general
takes over that
office.
position. Okay. All right, let's quickly go on the short break. After this, we'll be talking about the explosion that rocked the city of Ibadan. Of course, Governor Seyi Makinde has revealed the cause of the explosion and how many Nigerians are not talking about this, especially the publisher of Sahara Reporters, Amoyele Sowore. After the short break. Welcome back to the program. Matthew, we witnessed another sad development in the country on Tuesday night when an explosion rocked the city of Ibadan, as in Oyo State. And honestly, it was a sad, very, very tragic situation in that city. The governor, Seyi Makinde, was at the scene, and after some hours, he came out with a report that it was caused by illegal miners in that axis, that's Bodija. Now, how do you see this situation, this development?
I think for me, it is a sign of self-indictment on the part of the government, governor in particular. Because you have a situation where if you are, activity of mining is being regulated by government. I think it falls under the purview of solid mineral. And if you look at solid mineral, it falls under the federal government's control. So this all imagination how foreigners can be hibernating in communities, staying in communities, mining our solid mineral without the consent of the government. And we are seeing this ugly incident, and the government is blaming foreign miners for the explosion. Because I'm aware that those explosives are imported under strict regulation, government strict regulation. So for you to have such explosive in those communities without the consent of government, it speaks volume of our security. It means we are not secured. At what point, how did those explosives, how could they be imported without the consent of the government? they move from the port of importation into the regular society to the point that they are stored in an unsafe manner. You know, in all this, safety is key. So they were supposed to adhere to best world standard when it comes to safety in storing those explosives. So for me, I think heads should roll. And when we are talking about heads rolling, I think it has to start with government personalities who were supposed to be out there to ensure that there is no infraction when it comes to those mining. So I think the governor should go beyond the preliminary report and let us have a comprehensive report of who ought to do what, who did not do it before we get to this point.
About 2 to 3 persons were said to have passed on as a result of the explosion that took place there. Now about 70 or 77 people were also injured, and currently they are receiving treatment in the hospital. Now let's quickly take a look at the statement by Omoyele Shure on this development and what did Shure say. He asked number one question: even in developed countries, it takes nothing less than 48 hours before government agencies make a categorical statement about such a massive explosion. This includes cordoning off the area, obtaining evidence of the scene, and analyzing it before telling the public what exactly happened.
Findings, not just from the perspective of the governor, that is preliminary. If such thing happen, you need to subject those explosives to empirical analysis. You need to ensure that you put every investigation you go in depth in the manner of the investigation. Not that you just come there because perhaps you have heard from the locals, you don't rely on what they have told you, use it to make a statement. You know, like I was saying, we need to know how did the explosive get to those environments? Where was it imported from? Who manufactured it? Who gave approval for the importation? Have it been imported? Who gave the approval that it should be stored in that place?
Now we learned that the miners are from Mali.
It's irrespective of where they come from. If they are legal miners in Nigeria, then they should be legally allowed to do business. But even at that, at what point was it approved that this explosive should be stored in that place?
Especially in the residential area.
Yeah, do they meet all the world best safety standard? Those are questions that the government must answer. Otherwise, here's one road. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, now let's move down to another statement or question he asked again. In less than 10 hours, Governor Seyi Makinde already investigated the incident and submitted it was illegal miners. Who are the illegal miners? What do they mine? And why are they in possession of such powerful explosives? You said it, that no matter what, whether illegal miners or something like that.
Okay, if you see what I was saying, that will lay credence to my earlier position. That even if you are to mine, we should recognize that this is federal government. When it comes to solid mineral, it belongs to Nigeria as a sovereign state. And that you as a state governor, as a community, have no rights over those solid minerals. And that it behoves of federal government through the Ministry of Solid Mineral to give license. Yes, to give license to miners and regulate the activities. So I would say that these Malian citizens who are perhaps being indicted in this saga, are we saying they got approval from the Ministry of Solid Mineral? Are we saying they have the license to mine? So I think the personnel should quickly be taken into custody for proper investigation.
Now, moving on to another one, he said, mining and using explosives as a procedure and rarely explodes without a trigger, especially dynamite. You have to ignite it automatedly or use fire. Was the building rigged with explosives? If so, why? That's another question.
The issue is, that is where safety comes in.
Okay.
Because you must ensure that you put in the world best safety standard. Because we are talking of explosive. And we know that in most cases, you want to blast rock. That is where it comes handy to use explosive. So what, like the question he raised, what were they mining? We need to know.
And the question I want to throw
who gave the approval for the mining?
Now,
we need to know.
Is the governor of the states aware that there is mining activities going on in that place? Because because he made a statement that there are illegal miners.
They are illegal miners, and they have been staying in those communities for maybe months, years, as the case may be. And the locals are aware. I think Hess must roll at this point. Let us know at what point they came into the country, and at what point do they go get the approval to start mining? Who gave the approval? Under whose authority are they carrying out the operations? We must know all this, so that we can forestall a possible ugly incidents of this in the future.
Now, let's talk about the fresh loan. The federal government has opened talk with the World Bank. And I asked myself, what's the loan meant for? I think you read the story, right?
The truth is, you cannot, the issue of forest scarcity in Nigeria is not a rocket science. The way to address it is to export more and earn more. You don't solve forest scarcity with government policy. You don't solve it with fiat. The way it stands today, crude oil still account for over 90% of our foreign earning. By implication, once you have crisis in the oil sector, a disruption in the distribution chain, if our production comes down, definitely you are going to run into crisis of forests. Now, what do you do as a country, as a people? You diversify your economy. And when you want to diversify, there are so many areas of intervention. You look at the immediate intervention, you look at the long term, and to be quite honest with you, the major area of intervention has to do with agriculture. So you can have the immediate intervention, long term, and so on and so forth. So for me, I think the government should think out of the box. Borrowing money to address liquidity of forests is not the way to go. I've said it in some other platform before now, that we are not matured for the policy of floating dollar at the official window. Because currently, the implication is that dollar must, naira must crash against dollar. And the only way to address it, if you must sustain that policy, is to urgently diversify the economy, to ensure that we have other areas of export to earn more foreign exchange. If you continue borrowing to crash dollar, of course, I think you are going to plunge the economy into serious volatility.
Matthew, before I let you go, this is another year 2024. What advice would you give to the present administration, talking about the administration of Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in terms of revamping the economy, insecurity, and making the country a viable place for Nigerians to live?
My advice to him is, one, he should adhere to rule of law, submit himself and his office to rule of law. He should not resort to self-help, because we saw the revelation from the Baptist State Governor, the office of the Governor of Kano State, and the office of the Abia State Governor after the verdict of Supreme Court, applauding the president for refusing to interfere with the cases of involving their
Kano State
in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Let me quickly say that the office of Mr. President have no role to play in litigation. So it beats all imagination why a governor should be appreciating the president for not interfering. Particularly that of Bauchi State was everywhere, saying that the former leaders of his state went to tell lies against him, that he's a threat to the government at the center. He's now appreciating the president, that the president did not listen to them. So the point is, Mr. President should understand that the country that created his office equally created the office of those judges, as such that they ought to be, they are independent, and let their independence be seen in all human ramifications, in all the cases that adjudicate upon. That is one. Then when it comes to insecurity, I think Mr. President should think out of the box. He should do things differently from the way his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, did it. Because we understand that the former administration was lackadaisical, foot dragging when it comes to taking decisive action against full enhancement. I think this government should be able to, as a matter of urgency, take decisive action against full enhancement. And secondly, on the same security, I think we should rejig our security architecture. The command and control system that is centralized is not working. Let us allow the governors to parade some level of security power, because all crime is local.
Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you for
having me. On this note, to say goodbye to you on today's edition of Pundits. Join me next time on the same platform. I remain Michael Adikunle.